Hello, legends, and welcome to Blunt Force Healing Podcast episode 318. So, we are here Wednesday, one of those, I would say, uneventful days, but on the dry side because finally we have 2 or 3 nice days, or I would say fairly good days in Ireland. The last couple of weeks we were kind of lashed with the rains that were caused by all that fronts and pressure kind of going a little bit wrong direction, and for us because the rest of Europe and especially south of Europe got a lot of heat waves, but we've got everything else, which is pretty much rain, rain, and rain. And while I don't mind getting a little bit wet and having rain pretty much very often, you need to get used to it in Ireland. But sometimes it becomes a little bit annoying, and it might cause depression, especially if you don't get those sun rays regularly, which happened in the last couple of weeks. So you can definitely feel that energy levels dropping, and even if you go for a walk or somewhere else and you get wet, you come back, you need to dry your clothes, and if you don't use heating during the summer because the temperatures are fairly high, those clothes are not drying very good. So not a pleasant experience, I would say, in most cases. But there is an upside, especially if you read more of the recent posts, because the weather is quite good. I mean, not good. I already said it's not. Because the temperatures are fairly good on the higher side, mild to higher side, I would say, for Ireland. And there's a lot of humidity and a lot of water coming out of the skies. It means that it's a perfect condition for mycelium underground to wake up, which means a lot of mushrooms. And albeit it's already kind of season that started, and in many places there's plenty of mushrooms, I wasn't kind of looking into it too much. I was waiting a little bit closer to the end of summer and early fall, because this is where the season really kind of bursts, especially in northern hemisphere and on the European side. Despite that, we found a lot of interesting fungi species, and I already tested my first Amanita rubescens, which is one of those toadstool like, in the common language, the mushrooms that we all probably know the best from the very young age is the classic white and red mushroom, which is everywhere pretty much in different cultures. And that's actually Amanita muscaria, which is the red toadstool. But as probably most of you know, either from the cultural learning, that these mushrooms are considered toxic, and in fact the red toadstool is toxic, especially when raw, but it can be prepared for eating, and it's edible if properly prepared. Of course, it's not for beginner foragers. It's more for advanced foragers that know how to properly distinguish not only red toadstool is quite unique, and it's very hard to make a mistake and choose the wrong kind of one from Amanita and similar. But there are actually, in young age and in certain conditions of the weather, they might change their color and appearance to the point that they might be mistaken with other toadstool-like species, which are very, very toxic. But also in that family, despite the fact that many of them are very toxic, there are edible ones, and I mean edible, pretty much almost like the common button mushroom that you buy in the shop, because they are not toxic. And one of them is Amanita rubescens. It is not definitely on the beginner side, because this one can be really easily mistaken for someone who never collected mushrooms or did it maybe a couple of times. But once you get and you understand the particular elements and significant characteristics of mushrooms, then even intermediate forager can easily get to the point of collecting Amanita rubescens. And this is the one of those toadstools that are actually becoming red after some time whenever they are damaged. So reddish, I would say, more on the pinkish side. So whenever damaged, they oxidate, and there's an oxidation process for one of the substances that species happens to have, and it becomes slightly on the pinkish to reddish side wherever it's damaged, regardless where it happens on the mushroom. But the best part, it's edible, it's tasty, and I tested that actually this morning. That was my breakfast with onion and spices. I added a little bit of cayenne pepper to get it really hot, and put it on the sandwiches, and it was amazing. So highly recommend that. If you want to know more, I will be writing about those species, and probably you can expect the next couple of weeks there will be increased amount of posts that might be related to mushrooms, because the season kind of starts, the main season, because there's no such thing like mushroom season. Mushrooms grow all year round, and there are edible ones all year round, as well as non-edibles or toxic ones. But I would say in our areas, or in northern hemisphere, that time, the kind of summertime and early fall, are usually the ones when most of the edible, or kind of the most divisible species start to grow, and that's why most of the people consider that season. So that's enough about the mushrooms. Today I was quite focused on work very early morning, and a little bit later then I had a couple of meetings, but in the meantime we carved out a little bit of free time during lunchtime, and we drove all the way to Rosnala beach, and we drove into the beach, left the car because it was just after the low tide peak, so it was a lot of open space. The beach was quite empty in terms of there was a lot of space to leave the car and not risk it to be taken by the water, so we left it there. We had a quick family walk of about 5.3k, and afterwards we went to the bakery shack in Rosnala, got a couple of scones and tea, and got back home quickly because I had one other meeting and then one afterwards. So I needed to be obviously working remotely, but we managed to do a decent walk, so it was a bit of fresh air activity. Now I think my wife is preparing the dinner, and Julian is playing on the console. So what I'm gonna do is I wanted to record this episode, upload it, and get ready the actual blog post, and maybe use that reminder of the day to jump off and maybe go for a hike or a quick cycle. I don't know yet, but I will report on that later on. Probably I'll mention it on tomorrow's post if I write the blog post today. Nothing worth mentioning else I think happened today. so I won't be, dragging that episode because it's already 10 minutes. So I also respect your time, and as always, I appreciate you listening to this particular episode. And stay tuned for tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.